Welcome to Behind the Curtain Finance with your host, Thomas Manetta. Thomas puts people first in his chosen profession as a financial advisor. In this podcast, he talks openly about his goal to educate clients and his focus on conflict-free services. I'm Patrice Sikora, and today we will learn more about Thomas from Thomas. But first, welcome, Thomas. So glad to be with you today.
So glad to be with you, Patrice. It's really going to be fun, and I'm really excited to be here.
Excellent, because I'm going to ask you a hard question now.
Okay.
Tell us the history of your making a decision to get into this business.
Well, it is the answer to that is probably two-part answer. I was very close to this business through my father when I was very young. He was a stockbroker in the 70s and 80s, and he was very successful. And I learned so much from him before I was even 18. And unfortunately, he passed away. And the second part of that journey was me just doing everything by myself. I moved away from my hometown to San Francisco in the summer of 1993 without knowing a single person here or having a job waiting for me or anything. And I was fortunate enough to get a job almost right away, just by chance, really, on the trading floor. And I spent the better part of a decade learning how to trade options and learning how a trading floor operates. And then when that trading floor slowly became obsolete to technology, I knew that I had to pivot. And I began that journey towards becoming a full service financial advisor. It wasn't something that happened right away. I had to endure a lot of different firms with different business models, most of which I did not like, until I ultimately was fortunate enough to be able to start my own firm with, again, technology that had changed so much to make it possible for me to do what I do now. So not an overnight story. It took a while, but I'm very grateful to be here.
But that sounds to me like a lot of real world education. I mean, this wasn't classroom stuff. This was you were doing it.
Yeah.
Why is that important to you, that type of education? And is classroom education important to you?
So I realized right away when I left the trading floor that in order to be in this business, you had to make a lot of compromises that, weren't necessarily things that you were comfortable with. So I always made it a point to try to educate myself outside of that job in the hopes that, I could find a role within the business that would, that wouldn't involve those compromises. So I was a part of the UC Berkeley Certified Financial Planning Program, which was a great experience that taught me so much about how you can offer financial advice in an objective way and not have to deal with those compromises. But the business itself hadn't evolved to that point yet. The RIA world wasn't as big as it is now. But it allowed me to then use that experience and that education to get into the University of San Francisco's master's program for financial analysis, which again was an amazing experience, which was the core body of knowledge for the CFA program. And really difficult program, but again, it taught me so much about how to run a business, how the markets work, how things that I wasn't being taught in my job, I was learning outside. And it was creating kind of this much more fully formed version of myself that I could then, offer to clients. And along that path, the RIA world changed. There were custodians that were a lot less conflicted and there were possibilities that weren't available before. And because I had that education, I knew that would be valuable to the end client, especially if I was conflict free.
Tom, tell me more about that UC Berkeley program, because that sounds like that was where things may have started.
Yeah, that was a really important part of my journey because I was not aware that there were people that were trying to do the same thing that I was doing, which was try to learn a way to offer financial advice without hurting people. You just want to help them. And everybody in that program was, committed to that kind of that endpoint. And I learned so much in that program about different parts of the planning process that I didn't have any exposure to before, especially with estate planning, and income tax in particular. So I was just building out a skill set that I didn't really have before, and I was doing it on my own. And it wasn't asked of me. It wasn't required of me to do that. But once I got involved in it, I could just sense the value of it. And it's continued to pay dividends for me, ever since I went through that program some 15 years ago.
15.
Yeah.
Seems like ages, I'm sure. How many
Yeah.
firms have you worked for since then?
Well, when I left the trading floor, I had to work for an insurance company that was pretending to be a financial planner. But that experience allowed me to then get a job at Morgan Stanley. And I made a run at that. It didn't work out. But I was able to then get to stay in the industry and get a job at AG Edwards, which was a smaller firm, Midwestern firm that eventually got bought by Wachovia and then Wells Fargo. So I was back at a big wirehouse firm again, and struggled. I just struggled at that with that kind of business model where you're giving up half your revenue and you're pretty much selling, proprietary products that, I didn't feel were, in the best interest of my clients. So I had to make a decision. And, I was asked to interview for a job at Charles Schwab, which, at the time I didn't think that I wanted to do because it felt like a step back, but it was the spring of 2008. And it turned out to be the greatest experience I've ever had because, what happened in 2008. And when
right.
when you work at Schwab as a branch consultant, you're not really a full service financial advisor. And typically you interact with maybe 10% of the practice that they give you. But for me, in that particular year, the practice that I had, every single client had what was called a Lehman structured note in their portfolio. And so the product was sold to those clients as CDs on steroids. And so everybody had them. And obviously the only risk to those products would be if Lehman failed. And that was unimaginable that would happen. But, as fate would have it, September 18th of 2008 came along and 500 people called me at once. So I got the experience of a lifetime by dealing with, it was trial by fire with all of these people who were furious. And because of my experience with trading options, I was able to, easily talk to them about the product, what it was, and, their chances of getting their money back. And, but that kind of like, that experience really helped me to understand, people and money and at a time which was really scary.
I can imagine. And it really must have made you kind of miss the options floor, huh?
Yeah, well, it was a lot like it. Yeah. But then, as I got into my master's program and I was nearing its completion, I knew that I wanted to go independent. And so I left Schwab and I started on my journey as an independent advisor in 2012. And first as a W-2 employee, then as a 1099 employee, and then ultimately I started my firm last April. We're coming up on its anniversary, where I'm now an owner of my own firm. So it's kind of, it looks like a natural progression when you look at it on a timeline, but I certainly didn't draw it up that way. It just kind of happened.
Did you always want to have your own firm, or did it just kind of evolve into, I think I really need to do this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know that I wanted to have my own firm when I started. That's certainly not what I thought was going to happen to me. I thought at first that I was going to be, in the wirehouse world. That's what my dad did. I thought that was going to be my path. But I think the more that, my particular belief system kind of, was not comfortable with that, it just kind of happened. It kind of happened by default. And I kept progressing towards this ownership role without even knowing that I was, going in that direction. But what I did realize is that I was becoming less and less conflicted in every role that I had. And I really appreciated that. And I knew that I had to keep going on that path. So, W-2 advisor at an RIA, Now I'm a 1099 advisor, less conflicted, not by much, but a little bit less. And then from there you go to an actual ownership role, which is a big jump. And that experience over the last year has been dramatic. It's probably the reason why I wanted to start this podcast. And I'm sure we can talk about that.
I was going to say, tell me about it.
Well,
what made it so dramatic? I mean, it's a huge jump. Yes.
Yeah.
But what were you feeling?
Okay. So when you are working for another firm, like you're working with a parent company, be it, Morgan Stanley, be it Charles Schwab, be it a registered investment advisor, you're always thinking about something else before you're thinking about the client. You have an obligation to the firm that you work for, in different levels of degree, but you're never really positioning the client first. The client isn't in first chair. When you're an owner, that's the only thing you think about. You don't think about anything else. There's nothing else that comes between you and the client. And I wasn't ready for that. I knew that I wanted to be an owner, but I wasn't ready for the experience of being completely conflict free and just focusing on the client. And the experiences that I had over the past year with 3 clients in particular were just so unbelievably dramatic, because if I had not been their advisor, their lives would be dramatically different, because I made such a substantial impact on their lives when their lives were turned upside down. And I was able to just focus on them, nothing else. I didn't have anything else conflicting me. So I would, that was my, morning till the sunset. That was all I thought about. And it's still all I think about, is how can I help my clients? How can I help them? How can I help them, their lives to be better, and not have anything else in the way that impedes that?
And with all that, talk to me about how important the right custodian is. First, explain to the listeners what a custodian is.
Okay, so a custodian is where you keep all of your money, all of your investments, all your life savings is held at a custodian. And when I was a teenager and I was, learning from my father, you only had the wirehouses as it was pretty much your only option. There were the big, huge Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, and there were a lot more back then than there are now. And that changed in the 70s. Slowly at first, when discount brokerage firms like Schwab and Fidelity began their journey, and then they began to custody about 25 years ago. And that's when the RIA space kind of, really started to get some momentum. It was around before that, but it really wasn't significant. And the difference with that is that when you custody at a place like Fidelity or Schwab, it's less conflicted than the old wirehouses. There's a lot more transparency. There's a lot more ease when you go and look at your investments. You can see things, and it's just a lot more streamlined. And that's by design, which we can talk about later. But the good thing for clients was that you had places like Schwab and Fidelity and TD Ameritrade where it was less expensive to trade and to do everything, which obviously benefited the end client. The problem is that those firms were discount brokerage firms by birth, and that's their DNA. They are not wealth management firms. So they internally compete against RIAs. A lot of people don't know that. And that creates kind of an internal conflict within that ecosystem. The reason why I'm so excited about where I am today is that there is a custodian that was built from the ground up for one purpose, and that purpose was to support independent advisors like myself who want to do the right thing every day, twice on Sunday, and just protect the interest of the end client. They don't have anything else in their business model other than that. And so that kind of alignment between my client, myself, and the custodian, all for the benefit of the end client, is something that never existed before. It was never an option for an advisor, but now it is. And the result of all of that is my experience that I had over the last year. Like that's the possibility that every advisor can have that kind of relationship with their clients, and all they want to do is protect the best interest of their clients, and that's it. And that leads to, optimal outcomes for everybody. It helps the client, it helps the advisor, it helps the custodian. Everybody wins. Whereas in the old world, the Morgan Stanley won, and then the client was, I don't even know where they were in the pecking order, but way down. They weren't considered first. But now the client is considered the most important part of that food chain. So that's what excites me, is that there is that option that wasn't available before when I started, and now it is. And it's just really it's a thrilling thing to be a part of.
Do you see more RIAs thinking like this?
I do. I think that there's certainly a movement within the registered investment advisory space to support conflict-free advice. But there are still firms that are not completely interested in doing just that. There are firms that want to grow, they want to go, and they want to build their firm by buying other practices. So there's kind of like, there's not that same alignment, because you're monetizing your practice, which is kind of like monetizing people, right? And that's really not, that's kind of like the old world. But the new world is, there's so many young advisors who are interested in doing exactly what I'm doing, which is really thrilling, because they didn't have to go through all of the, the trauma that I went through, and they can actually just focus and they can build a legacy of helping people from a very young age, where I am not young, but I intend to do just that for the rest of my career. And that is just to help people and not hurt them.
Right. Think of what you bring to the table with that experience. Yeah.
And I think that, it always informs everything that I do, because I still have that, that scar tissue, and I remember how bad it was before. And every day it's, when I wake up, I just have to pinch myself, because it's, I don't have to live that life anymore. And I'm just really grateful that I lasted long enough to be in my chair.
So tell me more about your philosophy of helping and not hurting. This seems a very logical move into that question.
Yeah, I was, this happened because I asked ChatGPT, the AI model, a question the other day. I said, help me find an advisor who will help me and not hurt me. I just felt like that's an easy question, right? Everybody should ask that. It's something that, it's so simple, so basic, so very clear. Like what could possibly, what would possibly be the answer for that? And the first thing that they came back with was, you need to find an independent registered investment advisor. I thought, wow, that's fantastic. Can you tell me where where can I find an advisor with the least conflicts? Which custodian supports those RIAs with the least conflicts? And they said Altruist. And so within 2 questions, ChatGPT had directed me towards a solution that had never, ever been an option before. And why that's important? Because, I feel like I will never have to be asked to hurt a client by having compromises, by selling them products that they don't want or need or are even good for them. I don't have to do that. I don't have to pretend that I'm a financial planner when really I'm just an insurance salesman. I don't have to put myself out there as a financial advisor, a full service financial advisor, when I'm really not, I'm not able to do that. And so, I just feel like that truly is what I want to do for the rest of my career. I wish I was able to do it when I was younger, for longer, but I just hope I can help as many people as I can for as long as I can, for as long as I'm doing this.
I think you're on your way. You're well on your way. Is there anything we haven't covered yet today that you want to make sure we do? Because this is only the beginning of what I believe will be a long-running podcast.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do. I think that the possibilities for helping people, not just clients, but helping other financial advisors who I know are going through the same struggle that I went through for 2 decades. I know they're out there, and that maybe they don't know that Altruist gives them this kind of option that will give them such a fulfilling life. And I think the more we talk about it and the more we get that message out, I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people.
All right. Well, folks, Thank you for listening to Behind the Curtain Finance. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available, and they will be very soon. And visit the website at www.manettawealth.com or give us a call at 415-640-2121. Now remember, don't forget to click that follow button to be notified when a new show is ready for you. And thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Patrice.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Curtain Finance. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.manettawealth.com or give us a call at 415-640-2121. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Manetta Wealth. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Copyright 2025. This content, which contains security-related opinions and/or information, is provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon in any manner as professional advice or as an endorsement of any practices, products, or services. There can be no guarantees or assurances that the views expressed here will be applicable for any particular facts or circumstances and should not be relied upon in any manner. You should consult your own advisors as to legal, business, tax, and other related matters concerning any investment. The commentary in this post, including any related blog, podcasts, videos, and social media, reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of the Manetta Wealth Management employees providing such comments and should not be regarded as the views of Manetta Wealth Management LLC or its respective affiliates, or as a description of advisory services provided by Manetta Wealth Management or performance returns of any Manetta Wealth Management investments client. References to any securities or digital assets or performance data are for illustrative purposes only and do not constitute an investment recommendation or offer to provide investment advisory services. Charts and graphs provided within are for informational purposes solely and should not be relied upon when making any investment decision. Past performance is not indicative of future results. The content speaks only as of the date indicated. Any projections, estimates, forecasts, targets, prospects, and/or opinions expressed in these materials are subject to change without notice and may differ or be contrary to opinions expressed by others.